Meeting to order for the DURA Urban Renewal Authority at 7:45 PM. May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Luck,
Here.
Richard,
Here.
Pine,
Here.
Oliver,
Here.
Samuel,
Here.
Hendricks,
Here.
Chairman Scavera.
Okay, we'll move on to item 2, approval of agenda. The next item is approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
There are none.
Hearing none, the agenda will stand as presented. Next, we'll move on to item 3, approval of consent agenda. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, which I will read below. The minutes of the DURA regular meeting on April 8th, 2025. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Oliver,
Yes.
Tyne,
Yes.
Hendricks,
Yes.
Luck,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Chairman Samuel.
Yes. We'll move on to item 4, citizen comments. Citizens are asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes. DURA will take comments into consideration, but will not make decisions at this time. DURA will not engage in back and forth dialogue, but may respond to a speaker with brief factual information or refer the speaker to the town manager to arrange a meeting with an appropriate staff member for discussion of the speaker's topic at an appropriate time. However, DURA has no obligation to engage with the speaker by either of the foregoing methods or at all. Are there any citizens who would like to make a comment?
Hi, Laura Johnson, and I live at 334A Ensign Drive in Dillon, Colorado. And I just have more of a question, and it's a shame that Jeff is on his way back. I thought when somebody was doing a development proposal that you posted it and you sent out notice to people within 500 feet or yards on all sides of it. And I guess I'm wondering if the town is considering buying or selling a parcel it owns, particularly selling a parcel that it owns or transferring a parcel that it owns, why it wouldn't be sending out a notice to the property owners within the 500-foot area. And I guess if you all could just think about that and explain that at some point and look at that procedure in terms of how you handle developments and also sales of town-owned land. I think people would appreciate knowing. Thanks.
Are there any other citizens that were signed up to speak for tonight's? Are there any online citizens raising their hand? Okay, we will close citizen comments, move on to item 5, which is consideration of DURA resolution numbers 03-25, series of 2025, continued from the April 8th, 2025 DURA regular meeting, which is a resolution authorizing the Dillon Urban Renewal Authority to enter into an option to purchase agreement with Dillon Development Company, LLC, for the sale of real estate within the Dillon Town Center, town of Dillon, Colorado. At this point, council is welcome to discuss this resolution.
Right. And so this is a continuation from April 8th. It's a continuation of the discussion. So based on all the training you had earlier today, I just want to kind of point out one quick thing. So you guys are acting as the Urban Renewal Authority board members. So the 6 of you are board members of the Urban Renewal Authority, and you're not the town council anymore. Okay. And so one of the questions I think that comes up is you're in a land negotiation because the Urban Renewal Authority owns land with a private developer. All right. So you haven't decided on the value you want to pay them to pay for the land yet necessarily, given you a proposal that was negotiated by town staff, the town attorney, the applicant and the applicant's attorney, and Eddie O'Brien, the applicant's here. If you have questions for him specifically, there's kind of an important nuance is that right now the Urban Renewal Authority is trying to decide whether or not they want to sell the land to this developer to package it with something with a set of rules, which is in the option to purchase agreement, in order for them to pursue a development application. So that would be the next step. If you guys said yes, the option agreement gives them the right to then submit a development application to the town of Dillon. And the town council and the Planning and Zoning Commission would be the judge of that development application in this case. And they have the town council members. And it's kind of weird to talk about this because the town council members act as the Urban Renewal Authority. In bigger cities, they're separate groups of people. All right, but here, because we have a small town and it's hard for us to find people to serve on these boards, the town council decided to appoint themselves as the Urban Renewal Board. Okay, so just kind of a distinction. And so this is not a quasi judicial process tonight. And Jeff, I think after the training, you thought, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
Yeah, you're right. I checked with our land use team, and while most matters relating to individual parcels are quasi judicial, this is not. This contract question tonight is not. So you're right.
Yeah. And again, you're the Urban Renewal Board and you're not the town council. Okay, so it's an interesting nuance, but so in order to submit a land application, our code says the property owners have to sign off on it. So in order for this project to move forward, either we enter into a cost option agreement, sell them the land outright, or the Urban Renewal Authority as the property owner would write the town staff, town Dillon, a letter saying we're okay to be a co-partner, a co-applicant for a development application. Where we're at with this tonight is that we've been working with them for this option to purchase agreement, and that kind of gets back to the matter at hand. The option to purchase agreement, one of the clarifications I put in my staff summary was that they would purchase the land for a total of $1,000 at the end of the day, is what their offer is, what we've negotiated to date. Now, again, you guys don't have to take that offer. You can decide on your own price. Again, this is the negotiation part of it, because your staff and the town attorney it's kind of an interesting too. Jeff's acting as the Urban Renewal Authority attorney, right? or maybe not, I don't know. It gets a little confusing, but the bottom line is that we're still in the negotiation phase, whether or not you want to give them the land, you want to sell it to them at the market value where we have the appraised value, or something in between these two numbers, or some other value. I don't know that there's any limitation on that. So again, the final contract, they would pay $1,000 to acquire the land in order to promote redevelopment. That's one of the functions of an Urban Renewal Authority, is you can take the parcels of land that you own and sell it to a developer at cost or below market value in order to encourage redevelopment and eliminate blight and those things by state statute. So, and then the $1,000, $500 is the option. They're going to purchase an option from the town that's non-refundable. It's $500. And then at closing, they'd have come up with another $500 the way this is written today. So I think that's the first clarification. And I don't know if you have any questions at this point, and then we can go through the parking clarifications.
I'll open it up for questions from council.
Not at this time.
The second thing I put is really the first clarification, is that the town attorney worked with the applicant's attorney and they decided they didn't want to make a change to the cost option agreement that was presented on the 8th. Meaning, I think the discussion with the town, with the Urban Renewal Authority board members is what happens to the land if the project fails 3 years down the road. And right now, the way it's written is that they would acquire the property, the parcels that we're giving them, and they would pay us $750,000 as a walk away fee. And I think that was one of the concerns of the town council, but the applicant decided they just want, that's the deal they would like to make. All right.
And generally speaking, to say a completed project, we're talking an occupancy permit. Is that
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're all,
within 3 years, there would need to be an occupancy permit for that project?
I believe so. And I think that's how that's written.
Yeah.
So that's just one thing, just so you guys know where the applicant's mind is on that. And then as far as the parking goes, I can kind of go through it really quick. One of the big changes we just made in February was we changed the ordinance for parking generation in the town center specifically in order to support restaurants. We went from a generation rate of 1 space per 120 square feet to 1 space of 400 square feet. So right now an office space is 1 to 400 and restaurant would be 1 to 120. We just use this for the Dillon Coffee Lab. So their situation, if we assume it's a 400 square foot store, it's a little bigger than that. The office use needed 1 space, and then the restaurant use would have required 3.3, and we always round up. So they would need 4 spaces. So they would have had to buy 3 spaces from the parking pool using the fee in lieu of, and that was, thousands of dollars to the small entrepreneurs. So in order to encourage restaurant redevelopments, we're looking at it all the same. So we used to give a credit, but we don't need to do the credit thing anymore because an office is the same as a restaurant. And that, it's just simpler. Okay. So based on that code change, right now, the restaurant, it's 2,100 square feet as proposed. It needs 5.4 parking spaces based on the code. Whereas before it would have needed 3.5 times that much. So that's just a clarification point because we just did that in February and the ordinance is in effect now. Adrian, if you could go to the next picture on that, or Jesse. Thank you, Jesse. So really quick, this is their proposed project. The yellow is the rectangle. Is the whole property with the town or the Urban Renewal Authority's property plus their property. They're providing the little blue numbers there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, are the garage parkings under the units for the different condo units. And then the red area are the 12 parking spaces they have on the lot. Now, we also put the trash enclosure, because I think we've discussed that many times. We want them to put the trash enclosure on their site because of the restaurant use. We don't want grease, and trash getting spilled across the properties that the town owns because it's just a nuisance for us. So we want them to have their own nuisance, clean it up if there's a problem. So in that scenario, so we have 5 garage spaces and 12 surface parking spaces. So they're providing 17 parking spaces. If you could scroll down, Jesse, to the next little section. Okay, and then this table, how much do they need? They need 24 parking spaces by code. The residential component, they have 5 3-bedrooms. They need 12.5 spaces for that. And then 1 2-bedrooms, they need 2 spaces. So we round up, that's 14.5, we round up to 15. And again, for the code, for residential uses, you have to provide the residential parking on your physical lot. You can't buy into the parking pool. And that's just like we've talked about before. When you own a residential unit, you want to come home and be able to use it. So those spaces get signed. We have that situation over at Red Mountain Plaza and over at Alpine Bank and a couple other places in town. So there's signs that says this space is reserved for the residential use, but it's always on private property and not on public property. Then the rest of the development, there's a restaurant component and an office component, and that adds up to be at the 1 to 400 square foot ratio. That adds up to be 8.3, and we round up to be 9 parking spaces. So 9 plus 15 is 24. So that's it. So they're providing 17 on site, and they're need 24. So we go to the next page. So that means 24 minus 17 is 7. They would buy 7 parking spaces from the parking pool. The deficient fee space, that's in the section 16-650. Kind of a long section of the code, but you can read that if you want, or we can read that for you if you want. But anyway, that's how they get to 24, providing 24 parking spaces to support the development. And then the fee associated with those 7 spaces is a tiered fee system in our code. So spaces 1 to 3 is 1 space for $2,000. The next 3 spaces, 4 through 6, is 1 space for $5,000, and then spaces 7 through 9 are $10,000. And it gets incrementally more expensive. And I think the code also capped the number you can buy from the parking pool is 20. That'd be the maximum number. So in this case, they need 7, and that would cost $31,000. All right, and then if you hand down the next picture, this is just a picture of parking lot A. And they're gonna take 11 spaces out of there, but I just did the quick count on there. There's 50 parking spaces, just so everybody knows the math. If you could forward to the next page, in the next drawing. So on this page, we looked at the parking pool. If you could just scroll down to the kind of more towards Main Street down at the bottom of the page. Yeah. So the yellow is the rectangle. That'd be the ultimate parcel created by the combination of the Urban Renewal Authority land and their land. And the blue spaces are the ones that are left. In this case, we don't have the benefit of civil engineering plans right now. And just from what I know and just kind of looking at it, in order to put the driveway entrance off Main Street, I believe they're going to have to put a retaining wall along that north property line in order to make the grades work and everything. And that's something that may or, until we have the civil plans, I can tell you. But you'll see the spaces in pink. There's 11 of those spaces inside the yellow rectangle. So that's what the town's given up. 11 of the parking spaces of parking lot A will be physically within the boundaries of their property, their proposed project to create their project. And then I think those other 6 spaces to the north there, I think either from a fire standpoint, if we end up with that wall there to keep the circulation going in the parking lot, I think we need those 3 or those 6 spaces. So the ultimate deficit in the parking would be a deduction of 17, and then there's green space at the bottom, they add 4. So we'd lose 13 spaces out of parking lot A. So about 30% of the existing parking. And so that's in the name of redevelopment. So that's how that math worked out. And then I think one of the other questions I was asked was about the parking area cost. And so we just, we drew that little blue line around there. So that's just, if we remove that asphalt and concrete, and we put it back, and based on some of the contract prices I have now with some contingencies on it, I think that would cost about $70,000. It just occurred to me yesterday that 70,000 divided by 3,500 square foot is $20 a square foot. Just to kind of give you a round number of what that parking costs in that scenario. So I think those are all the questions I wanted to answer. If you have more questions, I'd be happy to answer those, but or if you want clarifications on those questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
So the town, that parking lot is, I would consider public benefit to the residents, the community. What options are there if the town gives up that public benefit of getting better compensation or application of public benefit somewhere else in exchange for giving that up?
Well, I think at this time, I think, so the compensation piece, right now, what they've asked for is to get the land for free. We just ended up being at $1,000 to make the
Right.
math easy. You can ask for them to purchase the property for more than $1,000.
And the other projects within the town that were most recently built, they did pay for acquired land, the Homewood Suites and sale lofts.
Yes, if we go back in time, so when the DURA was first, so we've only used the DURA authority, I think 3 times. And the first one in 2011, right after they had formed the Urban Renewal Authority, was the Pug Rhines expansion. And they ended up with a little L-shaped sliver around there to expand the brewery and expand the restaurant into the old brewery space. And that particular transaction, they were given the land free through a quick claim deed. And again, it's one of those situations where it was adjacent to their building, so it wasn't really useful to anybody else to build on that. So that was in 2011. 2017, we started negotiations with Homewood Suites. Now, I misspoke previously. They actually bought the land at market value from the town of Dillon and not the Urban Renewal Authority. They used the Urban Renewal Authority to get tax increment financing to help with their public improvements. Okay. And then the third instance would be the sale loss project. So we created lots over there and on town-owned property, and we put them out for an RFP. And when it came back, the proposal we got was to purchase the land at market value, which is around $1 million an acre, just so you know, and I think they paid right around $1 million. And that DURA did own that property, and so DURA transferred the parcels to that developer at market value, whatever the appraisal cost was. So we've kind of done it different ways on all these different projects. So, and again, it really is just, it's an evaluation of what you think you want to do and how much you think that opportunity for redevelopment is worth for the town.
So the distinction between Pug Ryan's and the other two projects was Pug Ryan's was an existing business in buildings, sale lofts and Homewood Suites were new construction.
That's correct.
Okay, so just my thoughts in reading the DURA documents. You brought up, financing incentives. That seems that's the major way DURA contributes to helping the developers with the financing incentives, upgraded utilities, and of course, eminent domain if it chooses to acquire properties. The parking lot is public benefit, but it's town-owned property. It would seem more appropriate that it be sold at some sort of fair market value or some sort of agreed upon price.
Yeah, and again, I'm just a staff member here. So
Yeah,
that
I
is
know.
definitely an option.
Yes, I'm
So,
just
yeah,
trying
I mean,
to figure what our options.
Right. Yeah, and I think, one of the things I would just point out that, so in the grand scheme of our parking pool concept,
Right.
the existing building is almost 3,200 square feet. So against the math is easy, 3,200 divided by the 1 to 400 parking ratio. 8 of the spaces in the parking pool are really, meant to support that business. So 8 of those spaces are meant to support that business or a remodeled business, you could say. And we're giving up 17 in this configuration. Maybe, if they can make the driveway work, we'd only be giving up less than that.
So is it possible if DURA decides to give up the public benefit of that portion of the parking lot, is it possible to gain public benefit in some other part of the town, such as the park project in exchange?
Well, so it's a little tricky because the way that would happen is you just need to come up with a land value that DURA wants to get instead of $1,000 or $750,000. If there's a value in there where you want to use that money, the money goes into the DURA account, and then DURA could choose how to use that for some other public benefit within the umbrella of what DURA is allowed to do, the Urban Renewal Authority. So.
Dan, I had a question on so this is from the resolution on for urban renewal assistance.
Yes.
And on that, it says the applicant will be obligated under the agreement for disposition and development to pay DURA the fair value of the town-owned property. DURA may accept in-kind public, I'm skipping a little part, but DURA may accept in-kind public benefits in combination with or in lieu of payment, so long as the total of all payments and accepted in-kind public benefits amount to the fair value of the such town-owned property. And this was in their earlier agreement that's from 2024. So my question there is, that seems like an agreement that it has to be $740,000 worth of public benefits.
Yes. So I actually wasn't part of that particular thing, but so the previous attorney, Nick Cotton-Bias, had wrote that assistance application in the resolution. So I really can't speak to what that specifically means. I hear what you're saying, but I don't know why it was written that way. But perhaps our incoming attorney could provide additional insight into that. And I think the question is, to your point, is whether or not that assistance application would need to be amended, that resolution, in order to sell it for $1,000 instead of the 750. Is that correct? Yeah. So that's a legal
It's
question.
a legal question.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. I
But,
just
but
thought-
we can certainly ask that. So you do have the ability to continue it to another meeting in order to answer that question. So, and I think because this is, important in the context of what's happened in the last 6 months, I understand you guys want to do the right thing by the community. I think that would be fine if that's the question. But, and the other thing too, is that, you can have a discussion tonight about how you guys feel about just the purchase price and the $1,000. And then the second issue was, at the end of the day, are you okay if it fails, we get the $750,000, a check written for those properties, but we wouldn't own that property anymore. I think in the context of that scenario, there'd be a rectangular piece of land that would have to get developed and have to go through the development process of the town. So the DURA would have the $750,000 for compensation. So it's not like the town would lose control of how that property got developed. So because it would have to go through the development process and get approved by planning and zoning, and then PUD situation, planned unit development, it would have to get approved by the town council additionally. So
Ned, did you have a comment in the back?
I was just going to comment that I did work with the previous attorney, Nick Cotton Baez, on that resolution. And Barb, I might ask you to repeat that fair value phrase again, please.
Yes, so, do you want me to do the whole paragraph for you, or would you rather just to have me, because I skipped kind of the stuff in the middle.
And I'm really thinking around the fair value. I want to be sure I
Okay, so,
understood exactly.
it said the applicant will be obligated under the agreement for disposition and development to pay DURA the fair value of the town-owned property. Do you,
Then that's fine, right? there.
then, okay,
So fair value, not fair market value.
well,
There
no,
is a
then it
distinction
said,
there.
it said in-kind public benefits as contemplated under the act in combination with or in lieu of payment, so long as the total of all payments and accepted in-kind public benefits amount to the fair value of such town-owned property.
Right, and so that reference to the act is the actual Urban Renewal Act of the state, and
Yeah.
that is what that language is referring to specifically. So there isn't a requirement for a fair market value payment for property, so long as you are showing other value and benefit to the public through other means, such as mitigating blight. In this instance, it would also kind of bring the building, as you all may recall, the proposal is to bring the building down to the street front as opposed to being elevated up on a wall and not really attainable by the pedestrian public, right? So there's certain benefit can be realized that isn't monetary on its face. And then there's also the benefit of taking a aging building that is in blight and bringing in new businesses that are generating revenue, are generating interest, and those sorts of things. So that can all tie into that fair value assessment. And I can tell you that there hasn't been a in-depth analysis of that point by point to get there, but it was well believed that comparing what we have today to what could be through this process, that fair value was achieved. Hopefully I've helped clarify that a little bit.
Roughly.
Okay.
So these are mostly questions then. So if I have concerns, is
Yeah.
that later in the,
Yes, and I'd like to give the applicant a chance to
okay.
come and comment. Mr. O'Brien, if you'd like to.
My name is Bobby Craig. I'm with Arapahoe Architects. Eddie O'Brien is one of the partners on this project. Colleen Richmond is also, she's here. Mark Richmond, excuse me, could not make it this evening. I am also a partner. I am not just the architect here. So where to start? I understand that there may be some people on the town council who feel that this process is rushed. For the record, Mark and Eddie purchased this property 17 years ago with the intent of redeveloping it. The building was in poor condition then, but it had a tenant, so wasn't a immediate need to redevelop it. They went through 2 architects, Jerry Dawkin, Ken O'Brien. I came on the project in 2016. And we started doing proposals or looking at potential development. We made our first application to the town in 2019. We've been at this 6 years. There have been dozens and dozens of meetings. DURA, town council, planning. Honestly, I can't remember all the scenarios we've been through. But I'll tell you this, I think that we're at the end of our rope. I mean, at this point, take the building, do whatever. I don't really care. I'm worn out. I also kind of feel like we're in a catch-22 here. We're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't. And the reason is, as Dan said earlier, with the Dillon Coffee Lab, that's an existing office. There's no parking in that office. They had parking shared out in the common parking lot. And when you approved the rezoning or the change of use from an office to a coffee shop, you didn't require them to come up with any new parking because they already had parking in the common spaces out there. So why don't we get credit for a building that's been there almost 60 years? It's been all kinds of things, offices, the FERC office, a medical office. We should get credit for 8 parking spaces in that lot, like anyone else would. There are 4 buildings that surround this parcel. Jess, I don't know if you have a site plan that we provided in our original DURA application. Well, excuse me, the most recent one, which would be, it's in the packet.
It's probably, I mean, if you just want a parking lot map, you can just scroll up a few pages.
That's good enough,
Yeah.
right there. So there's 4 buildings that share that parking lot. If anyone develops that parking lot, you're cannibalizing their parking spaces. All of those buildings have some piece of that. Yeah, the parking lot is owned by the town, but you can't take away parking from the last viable businesses in town. There aren't many left. So going back to this assessed value of the parking area at 700, well, there's 2 types of land around our building. There's this incremental land around it, very similar to Pug Ryan's. No one else can develop on the north, the south, and the west of our building. You can't build a 10-foot wide building unless you're in Hong Kong and fit it in there. It's just not possible. So the only thing that has value, and I do agree, it has value as a parking lot because it is a parking lot. And that's to the right of this. And I want credit for 8 spaces in there. You're saying there's 11 spaces we're losing. Well, really, you're only losing 3. All right. I'm not going to get into the minutia, the parking. You want us to pay for some spaces, that's fine. We greatly appreciate that restaurants are no longer counted at one space for every 120 square feet. That would have effectively killed our restaurant proposal here. There is no way we could have moved ahead and paid for all of the additional parking that we would have needed to have come up with. I'm going to jump around here. Some of your concerns are project failure. Ours too. We got a lot more skin in this game than you do. If the project fails, well, let's go through. So we purchased the property for $1,000. Okay. It's not costing the town any money to encourage redevelopment, to remove blight. We're not asking you for money to do this. We are willing to go out and get financing and do this on our own. So it's not costing you money. And that is exactly what DURA is supposed to do. You are to encourage redevelopment. If you start asking us to pay for parking lots that we already use, you're discouraging development. You're doing the exact opposite of what your stated purpose is. If the project fails, we have 1 year to have a real estate agreement signed and to actually take the property. We have 3 years after that to build the building. If we do not get that building built, you will get $750,000 from us. That means like we purchased the land just like you wanted, $750,000. What if it fails so bad and we can't even come up with 750? We don't have 2 nickels left. You guys get the land back. And that's exactly what you want. You want some assurance that you have the land back. We agree to that. Write it in there, Jeff. We'll put it in the development agreement tonight. That's the catastrophic failure. We're banking on being able to at least get something going here. Town parking structure. Everybody wants to have the ability to build a parking structure in this lot, and we could double the number of parking spaces. We could go from 50 to 100. We don't have the financing to do that. I'm not sure if the town does now or in the future. If it does happen, we will support it. We'll do everything we can to back you. I don't think we can put any dimes into it, but we certainly would not oppose it in any way. We would encourage it, because when you have the farmer's market, you do need more parking. But you know what? The other 95% of the year right now, you don't need that parking. We have the exact opposite parking problem. We have too much parking. Right now, go out there. Are there any cars out there except for this meeting? No. It's freaking 8 o'clock. There's a Nuggets game on. There should be people going into restaurants doing things. They are not. This town is dying. We need to do things to get it alive again. We want to invest in this. Help us invest in the community. Quality design. I believe if you, Jess, if you could scroll, I think it's
It would be in the other, it would be
in
from
the other file.
the April 8th.
Yep, keep going down a little bit. Can we zoom out on that, or is that? Thank you. All right. Talk about the good stuff. Quality design. On the right, you have this blighted building that's raised up about 8 feet off the corner. It's hidden by trees, a concrete wall. The roof is leaking and failing. Nobody will rent it. It's blighted. No other way to describe it. As the town master plan, the town core plan, the pedestrian plan, all of these plans have requested is developers create a street-oriented, pedestrian-oriented corner. Commercial businesses, restaurants, bike shops, whatever that is. And that's what we're showing on the left here. The 3D image on the lower left is looking from Lake Dillon and Main Street. First floor has a cafe on the street. We have a tall ceiling, 14-foot ceilings. That we hope to make a restaurant, a coffee shop, a bar, something like that. Offices on the second floor, third floor is a penthouse, residential. It steps back from the street. We don't have 4 and 5 stories on the street like some other developers have proposed in recent history. We feel that this is exactly what fits in the town core and what you guys have, what I have heard, not only from your members, but town council members over the last 9 years. Let's activate that corner. We agree completely. The middle and top images show the 4 townhomes, which are along Main Street there. Porches, step back, angled roofs, things like that. If you have been coming to previous meetings, you've seen all kinds of iterations of this, but this is our best one right now. I'm just asking you for a little bit of help here. And also, if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them. I missed the last meeting on the 8th, but I apologize for that. But what do you guys want?
Well, I'd like to move away from the discussions of failure and try and find some common ground for success. Because I think that's what the town wants. I think it's what you want. The parking lot has public benefit, and there were other discussions as to how to preserve the public benefit and ownership that the town has in that lot while still trying to get your project parking spaces. And as some research was looked into there, it got more complicated. So I guess from you, are there alternatives that help preserve the public benefit that the town has in its ownership of that parking lot, but yet still gets us to try and move forward with the development for you?
Well, if you're asking what the monetary value is on that parking, I'll tell you that your appraisal that was done previously was based on putting 2 or 3 townhomes on that parking spot, right, Dan?
I think it was 4.
4, okay. So you were going to take away that parking and put a townhome project on there. And that's how you came up with the $750,000 value. We're not proposing that. We're proposing to keep it as parking. We're not putting a building on there. So that value of $750,000 is fictitious. Parking spaces typically are valued at between $20,000 and $40,000. That's it. So if you really want to talk about the value, if you want to talk numbers, I'll start talking numbers, but 750 is a non-starter.
There was discussion of allowing the parking there in perpetuity, but it was very complicated.
Right.
That preserves the lot for the town, gets you parking without cost, moves the project forward. Alternatives to that would be to arrive at some sort of agreeable figure that then allows the town to have public benefit in some other part of the town in a project that's been stalled. Those are win-win scenarios. Just for me, giving up that portion of a parking lot is somewhat separate than DURA's responsibilities. It's a transfer of town land to your project. in giving up public benefit. And that's the argument that your project is public benefit, but it doesn't meet the standard definitions of what public benefit is.
I would disagree with that. I don't think that the DURA's mission is to make money to then spend it elsewhere. It is to encourage redevelopment and remove blighted conditions. Now, if you want to
I-
take
I
money from
agree.
us and go do it somewhere else, then yes, I have a concern with it.
Well, but the town, I'm just discussing, we're not, the town is giving up value in exchange for what is perceived as a DURA responsibility, but it's actually giving up its public benefit. And the town has other responsibilities to help you, and that's with financial incentives, upgrading utilities, and acquiring property through eminent domain, and then can transfer it to you. The difference here is that this parking lot is not eminent domain, it's town property. So I'm just trying to discuss alternatives to how to get to a win-win. I don't know what that answer is, but it doesn't seem like giving up that value in land value translates to that. I think there's alternatives that we can get there. I mean, if it makes sense, what I'm saying.
You mentioned sale lofts earlier. That was purchased, each building site, there's 2 buildings, was purchased for approximately $1 million. And prior to that transfer, they were basically dog parks. Nothing going on there. So the town that through the DURA process, not the town, DURA was given $1 million for each of those. We built 25, and because I was the architect on that, we built 25 units. It's about 40,000 per unit was the purchase price. That allowed us to actually go ahead with that project and make some money. Developers aren't going to do projects that don't make money. And I'll tell you right now, at $750,000, we don't have enough margin there to move ahead with it. I'm not even sure if we do without that. Giving us the land for free, I'm still worried we don't have enough money. And I'm not the only one. You mentioned that you have all these small parcels and slivers of land and parking lots throughout the town core. If you're going to ask developers or adjacent property owners to purchase those slivers of land or to pay for parking that they're already using, public benefit, but those businesses are using it. That coffee shop that I went to yesterday, I pulled up and I parked in front of it. It's on your land. That is your public benefit. You had businesses that were thriving. I think that's the value.
Comments?
Should I jump in? Can we start making comments?
Are you,
Any other
What-
questions?
okay, we'll start.
Okay.
Rachel?
So yes, just what you said, Bobby, the public benefit is, is redevelopment. It's eliminating blight. It meets the goal, this development meets the goals of the town core master plan. It brings more housing, which brings more people to the town core. It brings a restaurant, it brings sales tax. It's, eliminating a blighted building that's been empty for years. This development is proposing to build right to the street, down to the street, to draw people, pedestrians in. These parking spots, with the exception of concerts and maybe the farmer's market or other town events, they're empty because there's nowhere to go. There's no business in this building. So I see it as, there's a ton of public benefit here. And, the developers have agreed, I'm comfortable with the assurances that they've, agreed to in terms of assuring that this development is going to, be finished at a certain time. And if not, there's assurances there. So it, as I said before, checks all the boxes of what the Dillon Urban Renewal Authority was developed for, which is to promote redevelopment. So I am in favor of this project. I am in favor of approving this resolution tonight.
Thank you, Rachel. Barb, you had some comments?
Yes, so if you remember last meeting, I asked if there was a financial analysis, which there isn't in any of the packages or that we've been provided anyway. So I took a look at it myself. So 750,000 divided by the 14,454 square foot project is $52 a square foot. You have a $400 square foot construction cost. The Zillow's estimates for 3-bedroom, 3-bath or 2 to 3 bath townhomes in Dillon run from 750 square foot to 1,300 as far as current sale prices. I ran those numbers today. So to me, this is mostly trading public property for private benefit. There are 5 condominiums that are not condominiums, sorry, townhomes. So, and they're 3-bedroom, 3-bath, or 3.5 bath, I believe. So those are big units and very desirable. So to me, that it seems like there's and I don't have all the construction costs, I know, because you guys have to do some in-ground attaching stuff to utilities. But I still think that the 400 to the 750 to 1,300 is pretty big. So, and then right now the property is in the Metro District. Even if it's not officially in, it's in the inclusion area. And this is a problem. It has to be removed before any option is considered, because most of the benefits would go to the Metro District if you built this and you were in the Metro District. I'm also concerned about the option being assignable. I think it should just be for you. If I don't think you should be able to assemble. I mentioned this last time. Assemble these pieces of property and then sell it to someone else. I don't think Dillon is desperate, so I don't think we necessarily have to give away land. I think we can negotiate a fair price. I also looked at the restaurant. So the restaurant is 2,133 square feet. It's got a 620 square foot patio. Generously saying it's going to be wildly successful and it's going to make $500 a square foot annually, and the patio at $250 a square foot because of the 6 months. You're looking at an operation that'll bring in about 1.2 million. Sales tax at 4.5% brings in 56,000 a year off of that. And as an example, the Arapahoe Cafe main floor is about that same size, not the basement, but the main floor. So you have an idea of what that sizing of that restaurant is. I do think it is mixed use, but it's very small mixed use. It doesn't have like the Dillon Commons. I'm not saying it needs 2 floors of mixed use. I'm saying mixed use on the corner and all the way down Main Street instead of garages would be more of a true, change in benefit. The other question I had too is just with other projects I know, they're going with tandem garages, and I don't know if yours are long enough, but I think it takes a minimum of 38 feet. And if I look at that, I can't tell what it is. But can you put 2 cars tandem in those garages and solve some of the parking? So those are a lot of my concerns about it. So the $1,000 purchase price is too low for me. I do like it as far as, I like the design. I like the step back. I like the idea that it is partially mixed use. But it is, those are pretty high-end units. It's not, and I'm not saying you would have to, I do appreciate the fact that one of the units, I believe, is now, the 6th unit is also a workforce housing, but I don't think you're proposing to give the workforce housing to the town in exchange. Okay, so that would be the other thing that could be negotiable, is that the workforce housing has value for sure. And I believe it's 2-bedroom, 2-bath, if I read everything right. So I'm just trying to say, I wanted to see kind of what the financial analysis it was, because you can, there are all these great urban renewal, warm, fuzzy things. And I do believe in those, but I also believe that there's a fair exchange.
Thank you, Barb. Any other council members?
I would, yeah, thanks, Josh. A couple of things, and it's been said multiple times, but it deserves repeating. DURA's purpose is not to assemble cash. DURA's purpose is to remove blight. We have it here, and it is to spur development. It seems like this is a good project for DURA, number one. Number two, town staff spent a lot of time sitting with Eddie and his team to negotiate this deal. Number three, this is very pragmatic. These guys might walk away from this deal. Bobby, what did you say? Back to 2017? You've been working on 2016, this project. Time is money, folks. And the final thing is, and I respect all the work you've done, Barb, on digging into the numbers, but let's not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. This is a good project. May not be perfect. I may not like the roof angle or whatever, but let's not let the perfect be the enemy of the good, or else we will not have development in the core.
Thank you, Oliver. Other council members?
Sure. I'd like to know how much staff has been involved with the negotiating of this, because any type of trying to negotiate is just met with a brick wall. We're not negotiating. This is as it is, and this is what we want. So I'm not getting any feeling of negotiating whatsoever. In the let's see, page 4, top paragraph. The foregoing obligations shall be obtained within a development agreement between DDC and the town of Dillon. Which development agreement must be executed at the time as the option property purchase agreement is signed. Upon request by DDC, the owner may approve any alternative commercial use to a restaurant and commercial kitchen in the owner's sole discretion. So there's nothing that says this has to be a restaurant.
Oh, could I clarify? The owner in this document is the Urban Renewal Authority. It's not the developer.
Okay.
So all the power in that sentence, they reworded it that way, but all the power is with the Urban Renewal Authority.
But it doesn't have to be a restaurant.
Oh, but the Urban Renewal Authority would have to approve that change, the way it's written, as I understand it. I don't know. Jeff has a.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm on the fence, really. I think it's a great project. It looks beautiful. I know you've been working on it a long time. I'm sure longer than 2017. And I am worried about what Dan said a little earlier about needing a possible wall through the middle of the parking lot. Could lose 6 more parking spaces. Didn't hear any argument from you. That kind of worries me. So I don't really know where I am. I really don't want to give away the land, give away the parking, the private parking. So I don't know.
Thank you, Kyle.
Just
Linda?
to reiterate, I do like the way the project looks. And I will say that it's an attractive building, and I know you've put a lot of time into it, but I don't think there's enough in there for the community. And I feel that I don't think it's something to give away. Property has value. $1,000 is nothing. And there just aren't enough guarantees of more income for the community down the road.
Thank you, Linda. Just a comment on public benefit. If you look up the definition of it, it's something that's of benefit to all without cost. And so to say that we're giving up something for public benefit and then getting public benefit, I don't know whether that meets that definition, but I want to try and get to a win-win situation, but that involves us trying to get to that point with some sort of discussion on the parking lot, whether it be a better purchase price or some alternative which allows parking in perpetuity, which is very difficult to maneuver, but that gets you what you want without spending more money and lets the town keep its property. So I'm not the one that has those qualifications to reach that agreement, but if you want a project and the town wants to keep its value, that seems to be the answer, but we need to be willing to negotiate to get there.
I guess I would say with some monetary value to it other than $1,000. I'd be very willing to move forward with this. Other than Laura, I've heard nothing of anybody speaking out from the community against it. Not public comment tonight. So I'm not feeling much opposition from it, from the town. So there's that.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand. You're not feeling much opposition. I'm not sure. Just help me.
I'm
follow.
not getting much pushback from the community saying we don't want this. Whereas other projects we've had that people didn't want, they show up and tell us. And no one has.
Yeah.
Or there's not an outcry, excuse me. There's not I'm not hearing much.
Can I answer the question about the negotiation? Jeff's team, in particular, Bo, has worked directly with Mark Richmond, representing Eddie and his team for copious amounts of hours here. And what we looked at was not only the creation of housing, creation of workforce housing, the creation of jobs, remediating the blight. And so what we thought and what we were tasked to do by the council at the time was to create something that checked all those boxes. And that's how we got to where we are today. I know there's some hesitancy over the $1,000, right? But, you know, right now we only have a concept, right? once they dial in that concept after they get an option agreement, or if they can get DURA to agree to be a co-applicant in a development application, we can put hard numbers on how many jobs are being created. I would say Arapahoe Cafe, if you look at when they were in business, they had 20 to 30 people at different times working there. Sizable impact, creates sales tax revenue for the town. The housing, people want vibrancy, they want things happening in the town core. That creates it. The workforce housing, that's a whole nother box as we move through the development agreement, that we could have a first right of refusal on that workforce housing unit. I think local developers are willing to work with us. They want something to be created here to create that vibrancy. And this concept, a mixed use concept that checks those different boxes, is exactly what the town core master plan told us to do. It's what the council at the time told us to do. So that's how we got to this draft in front of you tonight.
I would also say, as I think about myself and arguably lots of other people, I would see as a public benefit, a nice restaurant that I could walk to after the town council meetings are over, right? More so than a parking lot. Plenty of parking in the town of Dillon. To me, a public benefit is a restaurant with music and it's a bar, and it's, you know, it's what Pugs is. It's what the Arapahoe Cafe used to be. That's a public benefit. I don't bump into many friends of mine who are driving around town looking for a parking spot.
The other thing I'll mention, you know, in terms of economic development, whether it's a project like this or say a sales tax rebate, you're always going to have this perception that you're giving something away. But if you look at like some of these sales tax rebates, these jobs would not be here without those sales tax rebates, right? So if you take that mindset and look at it with this project, without this land, this project doesn't exist.
The thing with sales tax rebates and TIF, though, is that that is based on performance. Is they are based on you're actually producing value.
Right now, this building is
Yeah.
producing no value.
You're right about TIFs, tax increment financing, but we are at such a low value base right now in this town that anything, a hot dog stand would generate more tax revenue as well as property tax revenue than the current building, the current blighted building.
Other comments?
I'd like to, call a vote. It's getting late.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'd make a motion to approve resolution, is it 3-25?
There's a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? Roll call?
Commissioner Richard,
No,
Oliver,
No,
Luck,
Yes.
Hendricks,
Yes.
Tyne,
Yes.
Chairman Samuel,
No.
I vote
Yes.
goes down, yeah. Okay.
Okay, the motion failed. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
second.
meeting adjourned?